In reporting what's being compared to a modern-day version of the Pentagon Papers, the Washington Post has obtained thousands of pages of government documents that appear to reveal that our government wasn't always telling us the truth about the war in Afghanistan. The Post gained access to the confidential documents after a 3-year legal fight over a Freedom of Information Act request. They include 2,000 pages of previously unpublished notes of interviews with people who played a direct role in the war, including our generals, diplomats, Afghan officials. The Post's Craig Whitlock reports, quote, several of those interviewed described explicit and sustained efforts by the U.S. government to deliberately mislead the public. They said it was common at military headquarters in Kabul and at the White House to distort statistics to make it appear the United States was winning the war when that was not the case. NBC News has not independently verified the documents and interview notes as obtained by the Washington Post. The Military Times asked senior U.S. military leaders about this report. They put it this way. Army Command Sergeant Major John Troxell, the senior enlisted advisor to Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Army General Mark Milley, told reporters that he had not fully read the Washington Post's Afghanistan paper story. He disagreed with assertions that either the troops or public have been manipulated into believing a certain narrative about the war. I've been to Afghanistan 10 times in the last 4 years in this job, and I feel that we've never been lied to, and we are continuing to move forward, he said. Back with us again tonight, retired 4-star U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, decorated combat veteran of Vietnam, former battlefield commander in the Persian Gulf. These days, our military analyst. General, there's so much to talk about. The war in which you served in Vietnam was, of course, that was the origination of the modern talking point to throw off American opinion, body counts, KIAs, wounded in action, etc. You advised the Pentagon on this report in 2006. You're quoted in the Washington Post story. This was, to many, the original war post 9/11. No Iraqis knocked down our buildings on that day. And yet, why are we still there?
Well, that's the question at hand, isn't it? You know, when you look at this war, Brian, it's been a giant endeavor, gone on for a generation. 750,000 American troops have served there. It's a real war. We've had 23,000 killed and wounded in the U.S. forces, never mind our allies and the Afghans. And one could argue that it's on the verge of collapse right now. My trips in and out of there, and I came in under the auspices of both a NATO commander from Europe, and I go over there under the legitimacy of the CENTCOM commander. I'd see the whole country. I talked to battalion and brigade commanders. I talked to the Afghans, Hamid Karzai, or down to village chiefs. And I'd come back with a pretty distinct impression of a war that at the tactical level was being fought brilliantly. I mean, these battalions, engineer battalions, infantry, special operations forces are just incredibly competent and courageous. At the operational level, you know, the ambassador, the senior generals in country, they change out every year or two. So there was no consistency of what they were trying to do. And then I think at the strategic level, the President of the United States, 3 of them, there never was a time where they wrote down their political objectives. We simply didn't know what we were doing. It wasn't even mission creep. It was mission fantasy. We were creating a democracy in a shattered country of Afghanistan.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.